What's up, guys? The title of today's video is how to lose weight, how to burn fat without intermittent fasting or keto. So basically I want to address a question I get all the time. People always ask me about my opinion on keto, my opinion on intermittent fasting, and if any of those are better in terms of burning body fat and losing weight. So before I jump into the specifics of keto and intermittent fasting, let's just talk basic physiology and talk big picture. Why does your body lose weight? What is stored fat? And some of those kind of general things. So what is fat? When you have fat in your body or adipose tissue, that's essentially stored energy. How do you get fat? Well, pretty much everyone knows the answer to this. You just eat a lot of food, you eat an excess of calories, and your body will store it as fat. Again, stored energy. Food is calories, food is energy. You eat too much of it, your body stores it as energy. So then, logically speaking, what is the best way to burn off and to lose body fat? Eat less energy, eat less overall calories, be in a calorie deficit, and your body will burn off the stored energy in order to use it as energy. And then you couple that also with some exercise, cardiovascular training or whatever, and that will help you to continue to burn more calories and to lose weight. So that's something really important to keep in mind before you look at any specific diet plan, whether that's keto or whether that's intermittent fasting, and you kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we go through and we talk about the specifics of these other diet plans. So one of the most common ones nowadays is keto. Keto is pretty much all the rage. Not here to pick on or hate on keto, but generally across the board, I don't recommend keto for the average person. There are exceptions where keto would work for a lot of people, and it has worked. It's pretty clear that there are plenty of people that make great progress on keto. So again, I'm not hating on keto, but I'm here to just tell you guys the facts and explain things to you. So what is keto? Maybe you're not sure what I'm talking about. Keto, or the ketogenic diet, is a diet that's essentially high in fats, low in carbs, and moderate to low in protein. In a traditional diet, where you're eating higher levels of carbohydrates, your body will use carbohydrates as the primary fuel source in order to give yourself energy in order to function. Carbs are a very efficient fuel source relative to fats and relative to proteins, and so that's how your body primarily functions, by using those carbohydrates. So if you're going to go ahead and do a ketogenic diet, where it's a high fat diet, a low carb diet, what your body will do over time, it will transition from using those carbohydrates, since you're not getting very many of them, and it will start to use the fats as fuel. It will convert the fats into what is called ketones and burn those ketones as energy, as fuel for your body. So it's a transition from using carbohydrates to using fats as fuel, using the fats and converting those into ketones, hence the name keto and the ketogenic diet. So a lot of people really like this diet for a lot of different reasons. They claim it burns more fat than a regular diet, and that's true. It does burn more fat than a regular diet where you're eating higher carbohydrates and lower fats, but do you know why? Because you're eating more fats. That's why you burn more fats on the diet. So burning, the amount of fats that you're eating in terms of grams of fat is not equivalent to burning stored body fat. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. You go back and you look at different diet fads from many, many years ago, low-fat diets, because people used to and sometimes still believe that just eating purely fat will make you fat, which is not true. So that's why the keto people can, talk about eating higher fat diets and not getting fat, because there's truth behind that. It's not about, the grams of fat that you're eating in terms of changing your body composition. The most important factor, remember, like what I just said at the beginning, how many overall calories, how much overall energy are you consuming? That is going to be the number one driver in whether or not you're storing fat and you're gaining weight, or you're burning off fat and losing weight. Okay, so a couple things to note about the ketogenic diet and why I don't typically recommend it to people. There's quite a few points I'm going to make, but I'm trying to be real succinct here. Keto is very hard to follow for the average person because you're not eating very many carbohydrates. You're going to feel like crap for at least the first couple weeks, if not longer. Some people say that after anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, when the body starts to get into ketosis, they start to feel euphoric, they start to feel higher energy and feel better. And I'm not debating any of that at all, but it can be very difficult for people to get to that point. And then even still, once you've reached that point of being in ketosis, which a side note, is very it can be tricky to tell if you're in ketosis. You typically have to do some kind of blood work. They have some pee tests you can do and other things like that. But there's not like any, you don't wake up one morning and all of a sudden, "No, I'm in ketosis." It doesn't work that way. Back to what I was saying. So if you're going to do keto and say you are able to get to that state where you feel better on the energy, it's usually a battle because getting there is hard. Not eating carbohydrates, you just feel really drained. You feel really tired. And it definitely will have an impact on your workout performance. So that's something also to keep in mind. And then not only that, it's hard to maintain even when you're in that state because you have to always be conscious of the amounts of carbohydrates you're eating. Because at the end of the day, if you go too high in the carbohydrates, if you go too high in the proteins, you can knock your body out of that state of ketosis where it's using the ketones, the fats, as the primary fuel source. So that's something to always keep in mind when we're talking about the keto diet. So it's pretty strict, it's pretty difficult to follow, and so that's why I don't recommend it to the average person. And then another thing to note too is based on our culture and our society, people rip on sugar all the time and rip on carbs. I can make a whole nother video on that, but if you go out to eat with friends or you want to be involved in social events, it can be very tricky and difficult to follow from social pressure. People offering you a drink, for instance, people making food, trying to eat some birthday cake, anything like that will pretty much ruin your diet. So you really have to abstain from that. And so it's just a lot of pressure and it can be very difficult for the average person to follow. With that said, there are people that do follow it and make great progress, and more power to you. If you like keto and it works for you, I'm not here to rip on you or tell you you're doing the wrong thing. I'm just saying strictly for the average person, those are the reasons why I don't recommend it and why it's more difficult to maintain. Also, if you're talking about someone who's a strict bodybuilder or someone who's looking to be involved in athletics, like I said at the beginning, carbohydrates are a much more efficient fuel source for you, and they're going to provide you a lot better energy. They're just better than a high-fat diet in terms of athletic performance. And I know people are going to get upset and going to debate me about that too, because there are athletes that I'm sure do the ketogenic diet and see great results with it. But just again, generally speaking, it's better not to. And also, the protein. That is the number one point I want to make in terms of being a bodybuilder or someone who's involved in trying to build some muscle mass or strength. You're limited on your protein. You go too high in the protein, and once again, you're going to knock yourself out of ketosis. And so, not good. Not good. But then to kind of summarize the whole ketogenic diet in terms of what I said at the beginning about your overall calories, when your calories are controlled, whether you're comparing a ketogenic diet or a traditional higher carbohydrate diet, the amount of body composition changes that take place, basically negligible. It's basically the same. If you're controlling for overall calories, protein, fiber, and you're talking about someone who's exercising. So with all of those things in mind, I don't see any reason for the regular average person to do a ketogenic diet unless you're one of those rare people where it just works better for you. You feel more full because you're eating higher fats. But the reason keto works, generally speaking, for the average person is because they're limiting their overall calories. By reducing the amount of carbs you're eating, by not eating very much sugar, you're just naturally eating less calories. You're causing your body to be in that caloric deficit, to be in a caloric restriction where you're losing body fat. So I really want to hammer that point home in this video. That is the main factor in why you lose weight. People often lose sight of that. And I'm going to come back and touch upon that again at the end after I talk about intermittent fasting. So now let's touch on the second really popular diet nowadays, and that's intermittent fasting. A lot of people ask me about this one too. What are my opinions on it? What are my thoughts on it? Well, let's explain what intermittent fasting is. Intermittent fasting is essentially where you're eating most of your calories, if not all your calories, within a short time window. You're going to fast for a majority of the day, whether that be 16 or 20 hours or what have you. And then the remaining 8, 4, or however many hours of the day, you're going to eat all your calories. And so that's a way, once again, to restrict your overall calories. Because for the average person, if you tell yourself, I'm not going to eat for 16 hours, and then I have to eat all of my calories in a 4 or 8 hour time window, whatever you set up, it's a lot harder to overeat on those calories and to overdo it on the food. So I think intermittent fasting can be great for a lot of people, once again, just like keto, in that there are certain people that it just works better for them. It's more practical. Now, intermittent fasting doesn't typically restrict your carbohydrates or your fats or your proteins or anything like that, so you're pretty much open to eating as much of each of those as your diet allows, provided and given your caloric intake. But the reason intermittent fasting works for the average person for losing weight is, once again, you're restricting your overall calories, you're eating less food, and so that's why you lose weight on it. And people like to talk about insulin, and when you eat food, it raises your insulin levels and causes you to store more fat. And sure, that might be true, absolutely. But that would be an acute or short-term raise in insulin, and that's negated by the overall fact of you're in a caloric deficit. So let me give you an example. If you're eating traditionally throughout the day, you're eating carbohydrates or eating food each meal, yes, your insulin levels might rise during those times you're eating those meals. But if you're in a caloric deficit for the day, the overall net effect of the day is that you're losing weight. So it doesn't really matter, essentially, if you're eating all your calories at the end of the day, all your calories at the beginning of the day, if you're fasting, or if you're eating them spaced out throughout the day in terms of your body composition. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're eating your protein, your fiber, you're exercising, the effect is still going to be the same. So I don't recommend intermittent fasting for the average person, because usually it's difficult to follow, kind of like keto, in a sense where you have to starve yourself for a long period of time. Then you have to go ahead and binge on food, basically, to get all your calories in. So it can be practical for some people, like if you're someone as a nurse, for example, you work 16 hours, maybe you just don't feel like eating at work, you come home and you just want to eat, or whatever, maybe it just works better with your lifestyle. I'm all for that. If you find out it works better for your lifestyle, you try it and you like it, that's awesome. Keep it up. Keep doing whatever works for you. But that's why I generally don't recommend it. It's not any more effective. And just like keto, I don't recommend things to people to make things harder for them. I want to find the best solution for you. And I don't think there's any more of a benefit to making yourself suffer needlessly to achieve the same results at the end of the day. So those are my thoughts on that. Also, another thing to keep in mind, some people get upset about this too, but for protein synthesis to take place, the act of your body utilizing the protein to repair and build your muscles bigger and stronger, you ideally want those protein meals spaced throughout the day. So at least every 2 to 4 hours, I would say, you want to have some kind of protein coming into your system. And that's just to optimize protein synthesis. You still build muscle and you'll still get strong if you don't do that, if you're doing intermittent fasting. So I'm not saying that you can't build muscle or get strong on intermittent fasting. But I'm just saying that it's more optimal to do it where you space out your meals like that, like a traditional approach. And people will get upset about that too. But usually what people say is your body will absorb all the protein if you eat it all at the end of the day or whatever. You're right, it will absorb it. But protein synthesis is what we're talking about here. We're talking about utilizing the protein to build muscle mass. And there's a limit to that. Otherwise, you could just eat 500 grams of protein and you just keep building huge and big muscles. So there's limits to this stuff. So that's why that doesn't necessarily work. But I'm not arguing that your body won't absorb it. Your body will absolutely absorb it. It will utilize the calories, utilize the energy if you eat the protein. But again, when we're talking about protein synthesis for the muscles, there's a limit there as to how much you can utilize in a certain time window. And then another thing I want to say about intermittent fasting, another point, is it's very difficult if you're already working a regular job and then you're going to the gym after work or something like that, to try to balance out all of this, not eating and then eating all your calories in. Just to give you an example, so if you're someone that likes to work out in the morning, now you got to work out fasted. You got to work out on an empty stomach. Again, I can make another video on that. But there's not any benefit to working out fasted in terms of burning off fat versus eating food. In fact, it's probably better to have some kind of food in your system because that gives you more energy to power through your workout. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But let's say you do go to the gym after work, and so you starved for most of the day, or you fasted most of the day, I should say. You ate all your calories before the gym, and now you're really bloated, and you just feel like sluggish and slow, or you just feel like you might throw up because you have so many calories in your system. That's something else you have to keep in mind too, is just that aspect of it. Again, there are people that do intermittent fasting, have made great results. I'm not here to take anything away from them or to say that that's stupid or what they're doing is wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion on it, and those are some of the things you need to consider. Now, there are cases where I absolutely would recommend or tell someone to continue doing keto or intermittent fasting, again, if it fits their lifestyle, if they enjoy it, and it's what helps them to keep making progress. Because at the end of the day, if you do intermittent fasting, if you don't, if you do a traditional diet like I do, where you just control your overall calories and you eat throughout the day and you don't restrict your carbohydrates or anything crazy like that, you're going to get the same results, generally speaking, when you're controlling for all of these external factors. So that's why I don't recommend it for the average person. But if you can make great results and get good progress doing it, and you're able to maintain it over a long period of time, then that's what you should do. You know, even if keto was the best diet approach, you know, and there was tons of evidence and there was all kinds of support that keto is better than intermittent fasting, it's better than anything I'm doing. If I can't maintain that and I can't do that for myself for a long period of time, what good is it to me? It doesn't do me any good. So you got to find out what works best for you and what you could be most adherent to for a long period of time. And practically speaking, you want this to be a lifestyle change. You don't want this to be a fad diet thing where I'm going to do keto for 1 month, make good progress, and then just kind of see what happens. You want to think long term. If I want to get in good shape and I want to continue to make gains, what can I do over a long period of time to make that happen? Because consistency is one of the most important factors in any diet or exercise routine you're doing. So you really want to keep that in mind as well. So just kind of loop back around. The overall calories you're eating in the day is the most important factor in why you gain or why you lose weight. It's not anything crazy, not anything like a secret magic pill or, you know, sugar and carbs are the enemy. When you're controlling your overall calories, you're eating your protein, you're eating your fiber, and you're exercising, you're doing good. You're doing the good stuff. So just keep it up. And that's why you want to track your calories. So one other final point I want to make about keto and intermittent fasting. Generally speaking, it's been my experience talking to people who do these diets, and they, for the most part, don't track their calories. There are plenty of exceptions where people do, but sometimes they don't. And in those cases, they'll come to me and they'll say, I've lost, 60 or 80 or whatever, however much weight they've lost doing these diets. And that's phenomenal. That's great. But they're like, my body weight has started to stall. What do I do now? Like, well, how many calories are you eating? Oh, I don't know. I haven't been tracking my calories. I've just been doing this diet. And so that's where you run into some difficulties because you will hit a plateau. There are going to be periods of time where you're losing weight or you're gaining weight and you hit that wall. And if you're not tracking your overall calories, it's really hard to figure out how to adjust your diet to continue making progress when you hit that wall. And so that's why, regardless of what you're doing, if you are going to do intermittent fasting, if you are going to do keto, definitely I would recommend tracking your overall calories and as well as tracking your proteins, your carbs, your fats, your macronutrients, just so that way you have an idea of where you're at. So that way when you do hit those walls, you hit those plateaus, you can adjust accordingly. And that kind of summarizes and goes back to the initial point I was making with this video is you can lose weight just by being in a calorie deficit. You don't need to do anything crazy, anything extreme. Just by monitoring your overall calories, that's what's going to cause you to lose weight. I don't know how many times I can emphasize that in this video, but hopefully you get the point. You can gain weight eating chicken and rice and broccoli and healthy foods, and you can lose weight eating McDonald's. So it's all about your calories. I'm not saying that either one of those is a healthy or appropriate diet for you, but again, to emphasize the point of really, it's important to how many calories you're eating. And if you're curious about what I'm talking about, or you want more insight into my diet approach and what I do, I've got some other videos on my YouTube channel you can check out where I have a full day of eating. I've got one video where I show a full day of eating when I'm bulking up, eating extra calories to gain weight. And I got another one that I posted where I show on a calorie deficit where I'm losing weight. And I show every single meal I ate from the beginning to the end of the day, tracking my overall calories and tracking my macronutrients. And hopefully that can give you some more insight into that. But that's basically what I do. Just try to hit my proteins, my carbs, and my fats in the day, hit my calorie goal, exercise, and make it happen. Like I said, people like to complicate things, and it's awesome that people want to learn and try to find the best solution, but at the end of the day, keep it simple. Find something you can stick to, find something that you can make great results on long term, and just keep it up. One day at a time, always focused on that long-term goal, and you're going to make it happen. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. I know there's a lot of information. Please let me know in the comments down below what you think, if you disagree, if you agree, and what your opinions are about it. But that's my spiel about keto, intermittent fasting, and why you actually don't necessarily need to do those diets in order to lose weight and burn fat. So appreciate you guys checking out the video. I'll catch you guys next time.